Shred. Is this S tier? No. Is this fun? Hey guys, this is Skinner here, and I'm back here to give you an updated build guide to my Shred. And oh boy, as you can see there, have I been suffering with this build. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. Here we go. Starting off straight away into the skills, nothing has really changed. Maul into an enhanced maul, which we all know. Of course, we're going to straight away go to Heart of the Wild, to Wild Impulses, 3 into that. Max out your Shred. I have been experimenting Primal and Raging. Primal still pretty much feels a bit better. Of course, Predatory Instinct into what I cannot pronounce, so that skill. And then Iron Fur for a bit more damage reduction, guys. 3 into Fortitude and Vigilance as well, and then I'm roaring my way to victory with a bit more attack speed as well. Carrying on, I skip all companions I don't need. The difference now, we are utilizing Hurricane, which then gives me a little bit more damage reduction. So with Tempering, we can have Hurricane pretty much perma uptime, which is great to have. 1 point into Elemental Exposure and 3 into Endless Tempest. This increases Hurricane and Cataclysm, so it's quite well worked together. For now, I'm using Rabies. I'm not entirely sure what else I can use. Rabies does feel well with it because it synergizes with the poison damage that I am utilizing, which gives damage reduction and damage bonuses. But we could drop that for Cyclone Armor. As for further passives, Neurotoxin, 3 into Envenom, and I do have 3 into Toxic Claws, with 1 contributed from my axe. Down to my ultimate, and of course we just max out our last 3 points into Cataclysm, all the way down here to get the Vulnerable for the strikes, which is very nice to have. I do put 3 points into Quick Shift and 3 points into Heightened Senses, and then just a single point into Fortitude here for a bit more Fortify while I'm shape-shifting all the time. As for the key passive, I am currently using Bestial Rampage. It is very difficult for me to understand which one is better between Bestial Rampage and Lupine Ferocity. I feel Bestial Rampage is better, but if there's someone out there who can maybe give me a bit more advice on this, we would see how that goes. For my Spirit Boons, not much has changed here. We're still using Weariness for more damage reduction. We have still bonded with the Falcon, so we have Swooping Attacks and Avian Wrath. For our Wolf, we're still using Calamity to extend the duration of our ultimate, which is very nice. And as for the Snake, I've always been utilizing Calm Before the Storm, but I must be honest, all this time that I have played, I've not seen this proc ever, so I can't see the ultimate being reduced at all. So I've just gone back to Masochistic. I cannot pronounce any words in this game, which just gives me a bit more healing. Over to our gear. For now, I'm going to just go over what aspect I have on, and then maybe very key point stats and tempering. So on my helmet, I currently do have the Crowded Sage. It's very important to have cooldown reduction, which will be priority, and armor roll as well. That will help you get maxed out on your armor. Currently, as you see, for tempering, I've got an armor temper, which gives me to maximize my armor. And then I unfortunately got Lightning Storm with no more tempers left. So that will be something else for the future when I do get a better helmet with better cooldown. Towards our chest, Mad Wolf's Glee all the way. I do know that now if I'm using Bestial Rampage key passive, the Lupine Ferocity damage bonus now won't apply, which is very sad, but for now I found that is the best for Shred at the moment. Down to our gloves, I got the Blurred Beasts imprinted on, which allows us to dash around and deal a lot more damage. It's very important to get Shred points here. I unfortunately haven't gotten any Shred, but I've got 2 to core skills, critical strike damage, which is very important, and if you're able to, get attack speed. As for tempering, I've tempered on critical strike damage and just a chance to immobilize. For the pants, I've imprinted the Might aspect, which gives us more damage reduction because we will always be utilizing a basic skill. Very important stat to have is an armor roll, because that will allow us to be armor capped. As for imprinting, I've got Hurricane size increase, because that will allow Hurricane to be bigger, affecting more enemies at one moment. On top of that, give us more damage reduction. Onto our boots, this is the Wild Heart Hunger. I'm utilizing this. It gives us quite a significant amount of bonus damage. The only issue with that is to get the maximum amount of damage bonus, it takes you to shapeshift quite a lot, and to ensure that you're continuously shapeshifting between a werebear and a werewolf within the 5-second period, which keeps the wild heart continuously up. That is fairly easy to do, but it does take some time to ramp up that damage. Our axe will stay the waxing gibbous. A very important stat to have on the waxing gibbous is where you get your breaking stealth with an attack, guarantees critical strikes for an X amount of seconds. Mine is very low at 1.9. We need to get that as close to 4 as possible, because that will make a significant difference. Quality of life of the build. On top of that, the 4 points into shred is, of course, paramount importance. Over to our totem. The aspect I'm using right here is the Storm Claws. It's very good to have. Another very important stat to have is cooldown. That is your priority, to get cooldown onto that. Our tempering, I've got 1 temper onto close, and I've got hurricane duration. With a single duration increase, now hurricane can last permanently with all our other cooldown reductions. As for my first ring slot, I'm using the Mjolnir ring. Unfortunately, this is still a sacred item that I'm using and not an ancestral, but the 100% multiplicative damage bonus is extremely important. The next important thing to get onto this particular item, the stat, is 2 to Endless Tempest. If it's 1, for me it doesn't feel good. We need to get 2 so that our ultimates can last much longer. The second ring, if we do not have a good amount of cooldown reduction where we cannot keep our Cataclysm permanently up, it is very important to have unsatiated aspect on one of your gear pieces, because without this, once your Cataclysm is down and you have that X amount of downtime, you're going to have no spirit to really dash around and shred everyone to death, so you need to have unsatiated up. Once you have cooldown in place where you can permanently have Cataclysm, we can drop unsatiated for the retaliation aspect, which will let us deal more damage based on the amount of fortify we have. As for stats on this big boy, I think attack speed is very important, critical strike damage, and a willpower is also fine. As for tempering, I have temper damage to close. That could be critical strike damage as well. And Cataclysm cooldown, that is your most important temper to have, so get that as high as possible towards the maximum roll. For the amulet, I'm currently using the Changeling's Debt. That allows us to deal a significant amount more damage while we're in werewolf form to crowd-controlled enemies. As for stats, once again, paramount stat is cooldown reduction. Tempering is the Cataclysm cooldown reduction. Those two are extremely important. We have to get our Cataclysm as close to a permanent uptime as possible. With low master workings, to get this all the way up to a permanent time is almost non-existent. You will have 17 to 25 second downtime, which is quite significant, so very important to get those and start masterworking this big boy as far as we can. I'll just jump into a little bit of gameplay just to give a feel about what the build can do. I must disclaim that the build is most certainly not an S tier build and very much not even A to B tier, but for me personally, I do love the build. It's very fun to play, and I am attempting to make this build somewhat strong. I want to see how high I can go, how close I can go to tier 8. I don't think it'll make anywhere near tier 8. I'm struggling already on tier 5. So very important, I'm making that quite open and honest. Into a little bit of Infernal Hordes. I do know this is only a tier 4, so this is nothing impressive. But I thought it'll be nice to show a little bit of gameplay about what the build is, how it does operate. This build does need a lot more love to be any form of viable. But for me personally, I do enjoy the build. I have been struggling with the build, but it's been a lot of fun for me just to experiment with. I have attempted to make this build strong. I do have a long way to go to make the build actually way stronger. But the problem is it does fall off. I do feel it. So, but I do hope that this is somewhat showcasing the power that it can potentially have, and I'm hoping to improve on this big boy in the coming days and maybe in the week or two. Very important to attempt to keep your bestial rampage key passive up. So you need to ensure that you at least stay in a werebear for a little bit and then continue to dash around in your werewolf form. Otherwise you do lose a significant amount of damage. It does take a little bit of time to get used to it, but after you doing it a couple of times, you'll have the knack of it. I'll just choose the Ether Lord just to demonstrate what it kind of does against a stronger enemy, although not recommended. I do think Shred is not the greatest against bosses, but the Ether Lord I do know is not the hardest guy to handle, but in higher tier Infernals, they can be quite difficult. As you see in a tier 4, he kind of just destroys it, but I'm pretty sure every single character does do that. So there you have an idea of the Shred in the Infernal Horde Tier 4. Nothing too impressive, but hopefully that gives you an idea of what Shred has capabilities of. And off to the Fell Council we go. I must say boss damage is not entirely that good with this build, but it's always fun just to keep trying. We have lots of room to improve, and yeah, hopefully we can start doing a bit better in the later stages of the game. I actually think for the bosses, it might just be better to have Lupine Ferocity up. So as you can see, the importance about having Cataclysm's cooldown in order to have Cataclysm perma up is paramount of importance in order for this build to actually be able to function and do something in the end game. I do know tier 4, not the highest achievement to achieve, but Cataclysm, once we get that uptime to 100%, maybe we can push to tier 7 at some stage. So that was the showcase of Skinner Shred, as we want to call it. I hope it was kind of entertaining to understand what the build can do. I do know it is not the grandest or the most powerful build in the world, but it will remain one of my favorite builds. And I'm hoping to build this a bit better, make it a bit stronger, and let's see what we can do. I'll be up live streaming a good few times within the coming days. Hope to see you there. Join me, give me some tips. If this was in some form entertaining for you, I thank you so much. May you have a blessed day. Be out.